When we picture the Blitzkrieg, the lightning war that shattered Europe in the early years of World War II, we see columns of sleek panzer tanks, screaming Stuka dive bombers, and fast-moving infantry. We attribute its success to revolutionary tactics, superior equipment, and sheer audacity. But there was another, more sinister ingredient in the Nazi war machine's recipe for conquest, one that operated on a molecular level. It was a tiny white, crystalline powder, synthesized in German laboratories and pressed into millions of innocuous-looking pills. Its brand name was Pervitin, and it was pure methamphetamine. Long before it became a scourge of modern society, meth was the Third Reich's secret weapon, officially prescribed and distributed to soldiers, pilots, and sailors to annihilate fatigue, suppress appetite, and heighten aggression. The Wehrmacht didn't just march on its stomach. It marched, drove, and flew on a massive, state-sanctioned methamphetamine high. This is the story of how Nazi Germany, in its pursuit of the perfect super soldier, chemically engineered its troops for victory, only to create a legacy of addiction, psychosis, and broken men that haunted the nation long after the last shot was fired. The drug at the heart of this story, methamphetamine, was not a Nazi invention. It was first synthesized in Japan in 1893 and later in Germany by the Temla Pharmaceutical Company in Berlin in the late 1930s. Marketed as Pervitin, it was sold over the counter to the German public as a wonder drug, a pick-me-up for housewives, a concentration aid for students, and a stamina booster for shift workers. It was the original pep pill. The military quickly saw its potential. In 1939, Dr. Otto Ranke, the director of the Institute for General and Defense Physiology, conducted tests on university students. He found that Pervitin could keep subjects awake, alert, and confident for 24 to 48 hours straight. For an army planning a war of rapid movement where sleep was a luxury and hesitation was death, this was a godsend. The invasion of Poland in September 1939 served as the first large-scale field test. Reports from the front praised the drug's effects. The military doctor wrote, "Everyone fresh and cheerful. Excellent discipline. Pervitin consumption is high." The success was deemed so great that the methamphetamine fueled assault on France in the spring of 1940. The Blitzkrieg incarnate was planned with the druggist's logistics in mind. The famous Holder Order of November 1939 explicitly arranged for the distribution of millions of Pervitin tablets to the troops. The distribution was systematic and pervasive. Pervitin came in small tins, each containing a dozen or so tablets. It was given to tank crews to endure long drives, 2 pilots for extended reconnaissance or bombing missions, and 2 infantry for forced marches. It was even baked into chocolate dubbed Panzerischokolade, tanker chocolate, or Fliegerschokolade flyers. Chocolate, a sweet, energy-dense delivery system for the stimulant. Soldiers were advised to take 1 or 2 pills to fight off sleep, with warnings not to exceed the dose. But in the chaos and stress of combat, such cautions were ignored. The effects were immediately transformative. A soldier on Pervitin felt invincible. Fatigue vanished. Hunger disappeared. Fear was suppressed by a wave of euphoric confidence and aggression. The world seemed sharper, reactions faster. For a panzer commander driving for 3 days straight, or a Stuka pilot flying multiple sorties, it seemed like a miracle. The drug didn't just keep them awake. It altered their psychology, making them more willing to take risks and endure horrific conditions. The early, stunning victories of the War the Fall of Poland, the crushing of France, the rapid advances in the early stages of Operation Barbarossa were achieved by soldiers operating in a chemically induced state of hyperlight. The Blitzkrieg was in a very real sense a speed-fueled frenzy. But the come-down was inevitable, and it was catastrophic. Methamphetamine is brutally addictive and has devastating side effects. As the war progressed and the supply became erratic, soldiers experienced crushing crashes, profound depression, exhaustion, and mental collapse after the high wore off. To function, they needed more pills. A vicious cycle of dependency began. Long-term use led to psychosis, paranoia, hallucinations, and violent irrational behavior. Soldiers would report seeing enemies that weren't there, or turn on their comrades in meth-fueled rages. The drug that was meant to enhance performance began to degrade it. Men became emaciated, their bodies consuming themselves as appetite vanished. Their cardiovascular systems were under immense strain, leading to heart attacks in young, otherwise fit men. The German military medical corps was soon dealing with an epidemic of Pervitin psychosis and addiction, a hidden casualty list that didn't appear in official reports. The drug's shadow reached the very top. Hitler's personal physician, the notorious Dr. Theodor Morell, was essentially the Führer's dealer, injecting him with a daily cocktail of drugs that included amphetamines, steroids, and opioids, contributing to Hitler's increasingly erratic behavior and physical decline in the war's later years. The army that had been chemically propelled to victory was now chemically unraveling. The story of Pervitin is a dark parable about the Faustian bargain of performance enhancement. The Nazi regime, obsessed with physical and racial perfection, sought to engineer the ultimate soldier through chemistry. They succeeded in creating a short-term tactical advantage, but at a horrific human cost. They traded the long-term health and sanity of an entire generation of young men for a fleeting military edge. After the war, the legacy of Pervitin addiction haunted Germany. A generation of veterans returned home not just physically wounded or traumatized, but chemically dependent. The term Pervitin additan entered the lexicon. Temla, the manufacturer, rebranded and continued business. Methamphetamine itself was eventually classified as a controlled substance, its dangers recognized globally. The Nazi experiment with drug soldiers stands as a stark warning of what happens when military necessity overrides medical ethics. When human beings are viewed not as citizens, but as biochemical systems to be optimized for combat. It reminds us that the Blitzkrieg's lightning was not just a tactical flash, but also the manic, unsustainable glow of millions of neurons firing on methamphetamine, a chemical frenzy that illuminated the path to conquest before burning out into the long, dark night of addiction and defeat.